second talk of this section, and it's a short paper, and I give the floor to Raphael and Malin.
Thank you so much. We, Raphaela, Anders, Hast, and I, Malin Nauwerck, we're very happy to be here to present a work in progress, which can also be described as an early step toward the solving of what in a Swedish context is a literary mystery of great significance. So Astrid Lindgren, who is a Swedish author of children's books, holds a unique position within world literature. Her enigmatic creative process has for many years been hidden, however, in her original drafts and manuscripts, which are all written in the stenographic system of Malin Shorthand, which is based on the Gabelsberger system. So in Sweden, these supposedly indecipherable original drafts have to a large extent contributed to Lindgren's creative process being surrounded by myth. Another factor in this myth-making relates to the role that Astrid Lindgren played in the production process of her own books. So the year after her breakthrough with Pippi Longstocking, which is represented up there in the right corner, Lindgren was employed by her publishing house and became her own editor and publisher. So Lindgren used shorthand both for writing and editing. Consequently, her shorthand notepads is the only first-hand source to the development of her literary work. Next slide, please. So these shorthand notepads, which contain Lindgren's literary production from the 1930s to the 90s, are mostly kept at the Astrid Lindgren archives at the National Library of Sweden. And they have for long been considered extremely difficult and time-consuming to access. They have never been subject to research. Within our ongoing interdisciplinary project, the Astrid Lindgren Code, we have digitized 55 out of 670 notepads, primarily containing shorthand drafts and manuscripts to the novel The Brothers Lionheart from 1973. Next slide, please. And the main purpose of the Astrid Lindgren Code project is the deciphering of Lindgren's stenography through mixed methods, so that is HTR, applied and developed in interactive combination with collective transcription through volunteer expert sourcing. So together with an expert group of stenographers, we recently successfully started to transcribe selected material manually in order to produce the transcriptions that we need for future alignment. So that is the introduction to what we're doing, and I'm now going to give the word to Raphaela.
Thank you. So moving on, I would like to cover a couple of aspects, challenges and opportunities from a handwritten text recognition point of view. Starting off with the fact that we are facing a clean slate. So there is very little HTR research on stenography in general, and there is no existing approaches for Gabelsberger-based stenography, which we have in this case with the Malin system. In addition to this, we are working with a low resource corpus, essentially. On the one hand, it requires highly trained stenographers to transcribe this data set or this manuscript. In addition to that, the already existing transcriptions or that are being produced at the moment are not yet aligned with our page or word images. Moving on, I would like to give you a brief overview of what we've been working on so far, starting with our pre-processing pipeline. On the left here, you can see the images as we receive them from the archive after they've been digitized. In our first step, we crop out these bindings and some superfluous edges here to receive a very focused page image. Here in the zoomed in version, you can see most of the pages are written in a gray lead pencil, and all of the pages have printed on them a red ruling running over the page. So one of the steps in our pre-processing pipeline is the removal of the background, as well as the removal of these red rulings to avoid distractions, which you can see here on the third image. In this step, we also detect connected components to then use for the extraction or segmentation of our words. Here's the zoomed in version then of the next pre-processing step. And finally, on the right, we have our extracted words, which we place in these uniform bounding boxes, and we arrange them such that the original red ruling runs through the center here, indicated by this green line. And if we had ascenders, like is the case here, then they would of course run further down. Once we have these images, we're currently working on a semi-automatic transcription approach based on clustering. So starting out with our images, either using them directly or applying some form of feature extraction like histogram of oriented gradients or a CNN, we feed these images or features into a dimensionality reduction technique, be it TSNE, UMAP, what have you, resulting in a 2D image of data points. So each point here corresponds to one image in our original data set. On top of our 2D space, we apply a kernel density estimate, and then of the resulting surface, on the inverted surface, we apply a watershed to segment even the individual clusters. Here on the left, we show a summary of each of the clusters in the form of a heat map of the contained images. And if we, for example, take this cluster here, we can reapply the clustering approach or the dimensionality reduction approach on the contained images to receive a more fine-grained view here. And taking, for example, this bottom right cluster as an example, these are all of the images that are contained in here. So each data point, again, corresponds to one image. And the numbers up here are just identifiers, so not of relevance further. And as you can see, this selected cluster here is already very clean, and most of the words are in fact the same, in this case spelling out Jonathan. And we intend to use this approach in a interactive user interface, which is currently under development, to select individual clusters, clean them possibly a bit, and then annotate in bulk these dozens of images at once as Jonathan in this. So in conclusion, we have shown early results or a work in progress, which show that Lindgren stenography can in fact be transcribed semi or fully automatically even. And in the future, we intend to expand our work to other HTR approaches, such as, for example, CNNs, and then ultimately automate or augment the transcription process for the remaining roughly 600 manuscripts. And with that, I thank you, and we're happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the presentation, for being time, of course. And are there any questions? Okay, I have in the chat. No. No. Okay. I have a question. I understand that you are using some reduction dimensionality algorithm, and I think you use to move your data from a high dimensional space to two. I was wondering if you did some experiment, try to reduce dimensionality, not just for 2, but for 3, 4, 5, and see what happened.
Not yet. At the moment, we've been focusing on 2D, which is quite it's fairly easy to segment, and it's easier to work with from a user point of view. But that's definitely an interesting idea to look into in the future.
Okay, then thanks again